So I don't know if there are quote unquote sort of dirty words in the human health space or the human wellness welfare. Is human welfare a thing? I guess it must be. But training is definitely a dirty word in corners of the animal community. And I remember hearing that, stumbling over that, if you like, the first time. And I was like, excuse me, what? What? How can that possibly be controversial, an offensive thing, a dirty word, I just didn't understand. Because for me, as a scientist, right, training is just another word for teaching, which is just another word for learning. Whether you train them or not train them, they're going to learn. Right. They don't stop learning. The same as we're constantly surveying our environment. We're people watching and we're learning about a new fashion thing, or we're seeing how to diffuse an argument, or we're reading a headline in constantly learning. And so are our animals. We can't possibly stop that unless we were to like put blindfolds and earmuffs on them or something. Like, well, who's going to, right? So clearly we want them to be engaging in their world and to be equipped to engage successfully in their world. They need to have skills. That's all training is equipping with skills. And different animals will live in different environments. So if you're a wild animal, you don't really need someone to come along and train you as a human, because you had a parent, or hopefully you had two if you're a bird, to train you how to be who you are and how to hunt or find your food and find your medicine and do what, right? Wild animals don't need training, right? But when they come into our world, when we put them in captivity, whether that's in the home with us as a pet and family member, or whether that's in a zoo or a farm or something, right? Now their world is different, and they need to learn how to equip themselves to survive and thrive with the things that are not in alignment with their innate understanding of the world. It's kind of like if you or I went to a very, very foreign country. What I mean by that is one where the language is completely different. Like, it's not even a Western language, for example, or the politeness norms are completely reversed to what we're thinking about, or where it's nocturnal instead of diurnal for humans. Also, I don't know, I'm just making stuff up, but like, how weird would that be for us? We were like, I don't really know how to interact with people here, function well, contribute, thrive, feel like I'm valuable, right? Feel confident and safe. Like, I could be stepping out of line. I don't know what the punishment's going to be if I step out of line, so I don't want to step out of line. Like, there's just so much angst that comes from that. And that's what we're asking animals to live with when we take them out of the wild, or we put them into, domesticate them. So if you don't train them, to me, this is very, very like inflammatory language, but to me, it's tantamount to torture, because you've set them up to suffer the whole time.
Well, it's interesting because you come at it from, your background is welfare for animals. That's really what you care about at its core, and sort of focusing on the physical health and all of that is a means to an end of their wellness. And so it's really interesting to hear you talk about that from this perspective of, it's actually the best thing we can do for their quality of life. And we know, obviously, that when there's a better quality of life mentally, that extends to physical health and even length of life. And, we announced yesterday this workshop that we have coming up on Thursday with Antonio Diaz. And what really struck me about his approach, so he was a part of our last summit back in February, and he did, we did a whole interview conversation on dog training, and his approach was really interesting. As not an expert in this field, it's fascinating to hear how everyone's ethos really is so different from trainer to trainer. And you and Antonio, you guys line up so well in terms of this approach. And I think he's such a perfect fit to do this workshop on Thursday, because there is such an alignment there. And he comes from this perspective of build a relationship with your dog to help them live a better life. To what you just said, you're helping them understand the world. And also, this really stuck with me because he said this last time, you're allowing them to be a part of your life more, to be a part of society more. Because, right, we all know what it's like when you're walking down the street and someone has a dog that's freaking out every time someone walks by, and, you know, the person's struggling and it's like a battle, and you can tell that's not a pleasant experience. And that person probably doesn't take their dog with them many places or get to meet new people and all of that, because, you know, this behavior isn't socially acceptable. And so this approach that you're taking is, let's help them interact better. Let's help them understand more. Let's help them be more at peace in the world so that they can enjoy it more.
Yeah, because let's be real, you wouldn't have children and then never teach them their manners, the pleases and thank yous, and how to have a conversation, how to answer the door, pick up the telephone, how to contribute to putting away the spoons if you do the washing up, like whatever it happens to be. Of course, you're going to teach them how to interact as a human, right? Because they don't know. But you're asking another species to come in who doesn't have a language, you know, to what, just magically know? Like, come on, let's be real. Like, they're awesome, but they're not, you know, magical mind readers. And so they need our guidance. And we're their parent, we're their responsible elder to give them boundaries, to give them rules, to give them rewards, to shape where there's an error and lead them to a better choice that means that they are harmonious and peaceful and joyful and relaxed and confident. And this is a big thing. When they don't have, it's just like, again, think about yourself. If you've ever been in a situation where you were really uncertain, you just didn't know how to do it. Sometimes for people, it's walking into a 5-star hotel or a really posh event, because that's not part of their normal world. And they feel a bit like, oh, like I don't, how do I do the thing? And which spoon do I use at dinner? Like, you know, what's the etiquette here? Okay, imagine that, but every day of your life. Mm-hmm. So you don't have the confidence underpinning your ability to then go and make friends in that room, because you're too embarrassed about getting it wrong. And so it's that way with our dogs. And so they withdraw into themselves. They lose their confidence. And they'll go, oh, well, I'll just hide under the sofa or run away until people go, or whatever their solution is. Or they're like, hey, they're in my house, I'm going to get aggressive now. I'm going to like give you what for, because who are you? And they're threatened. And so they get out on that aggressive front paw. So that's not helpful, right? Who's going to get bitten? Someone sooner or later.
Well, we're really talking about a difference between training to be a part of society and for that relationship and for that welfare, and doing tricks that may be harmful to the animal, putting them in a scenario where they're needing to perform, right? Classic example is like a circus, and, you know, training techniques obviously aren't super ethical. And so there's just a very big difference. And so this umbrella term of training, that makes sense. That some people are like, oh no, that's a bad word, because they think of like, you know, elephants in the circus and like, you know, getting stabbed, or what, like everything awful that happens in all those documentaries came out, versus we're talking about something completely different. So on Thursday, Antonio's going to be doing a deep dive into these principles. If you have not watched his summit talk yet, we just made it available. Please go watch it. It is so, so good. Like, there are so many incredible nuggets in there. And on Thursday, we're going to be building on that. So it's going to be more of a hands-on how to, like, building your training regimen. So like, watch that is sort of the precursor to part 1. And this is going to be the part 2 deep dive hands-on. We even have like a little exercise, if you will, a little demonstration. Is that what you would call it?
Yeah, we call it a training game.
So that will be a lot of fun, and really illustrates the point of what it can be like, you know, if you flip the script and you're the dog trying to understand what are the signals when you and I did that together and I was like the dog and you were giving me the signals. It was really eye-opening for me. And I think about that all the time because it really showed me how crystal clear you have to be and how there is so much room for error and misunderstanding. And it makes a lot of sense that we need to know specific strategies in order to help them learn what we're wanting them to learn. So I'm going to grab the link to sign up for the workshop, and I'm going to share it in the chat.
Yeah, I mean, that game really, really brings a lot of compassion to your training because you now know what it feels like. Because we may not remember our childhood where we didn't have a clue about a bunch of things because our memories don't work so great for that. But like, this is an opportunity to go, oh, actually, I'll have a little bit more grace, a little bit more patience, a little bit more compassion over that scenario. So it's really super fun, but it's incredibly enlightening at the same time. But here's the thing. It is, when you get it wrong, there's no negative consequence. There's no like a suffering or punishment or whipping or taking away your food or any like that's what you were kind of referring to earlier with those really bad. I mean, that's where training became like a swear word, right? Because the people would look at and say, well, it's completely unnatural to ask an elephant to do handstands. Like, it's just not in their natural repertoire of behavior. They're at risk of doing incredible damage. And in the learning process, what's happening? They're getting hooks in their leg. Like, it's completely and utterly wrong. Right. And unfortunately, that same word sits down this end of the spectrum and the same word sits at this end. And it's like it couldn't be more opposite. But the whole thing about where I come from with training, it is compassion. It is welfare. It is relationships. And it's joy. Like, I know I keep coming back to this word all the time, but ultimately, why do we have pets? Because we like them. We want to have fun with them. We want to have a relationship, a friendship with them. Well, if you're constantly being scolded or constantly fighting with them, is there the maximum joy? No, I'll argue that there's not, right? Both of you are missing out. So why do it the stupid way? Excuse me, I'm really blunt. Why do it the stupid way, right? When you can do it the smart way. And training's fun. Training is fun. It's a couple of minutes here and there throughout your day. You have an interaction, you have a play. There's a good positive serotonin feel about it. Like, it shouldn't be controversial. And I don't know, I'm losing my point now, but I just wish people would be less apathetic about training and go, well, my dog will magically learn. My dog did 6 weeks of puppy school and they got it first. Well, yeah, great, but that was puppy school. Right? What about all the rest? And we haven't even touched on training as ongoing cognitive enrichment. Like, you think about the human degenerative diseases of the brain, right? What are we told to do? We're told to do mathematics, foreign languages, play a musical instrument, do Sudoku. Like, we're stretching our mind and using synapses and connections to keep, it's like a muscle, right? If you don't use it, you lose it. So what do? We do puppy school for 6 weeks and then you don't get to learn for the rest of your life. What do you think's happening to your dog's brain? Of course it's going to atrophy. So you're being neuroprotective, longevity boosting, as well as all the stuff we talked about before.
Yeah. And one point that we talked about during the summit interview was Antonio said, if you're a dog trainer, raise your hand. And right, it's a trick question because we're all training, we're all teaching. Again, just like if we never send a child to school, we would still be teaching them how to exist in the world without even intentionally doing so. And right, so much of our learning comes from life. So whether or not we like it, we are teaching our dogs on a regular basis. Now, if we want to take that into intentional training and intentional teaching, that's where we get all that enrichment and that positive benefit. So whether or not you like it, they're picking up from you. And I think that's something I really had to work on with Birdie, who's 1.5 now. It's remembering that she's learning when we're not doing training sessions. So, we do little training sessions here and there throughout the day, and like bigger ones and smaller ones, but it's when I'm not thinking about it, right, that she's also learning. And 99% of the time, we're not doing a proper training session, which means that I have to be cognizant of what I'm doing the 99% of the time. And Antonio has a really great course that I've been going through, and I really appreciate that he's giving strategies of, he's like touching on that. Like, okay, when you're not in a training session, these are some things to keep in mind, because the reality is you're not going to be on top of it all the time. And that's okay. Like, you're not expected to, we're all human. But when you have the knowledge, the foundations, things to just keep in mind, automatically things start to change and you start interacting differently with your dog, and applying those principles outside of the structured time. Obviously he talks about the structured time too, but that was just something that really struck me and that I found really beneficial.
Yeah, okay. And the classic case with that is that the manners about jumping up. I mean, who doesn't like to sort of dance with their dog and hold their paws and you're up on your feet together, right? So when they do that, there's an inclination to be interactive and build that. But in your training sessions where you're doing manners, it's like, no, don't jump up, don't jump up, don't jump up, and you're training this. And then as soon as training's over, it's like, okay, and then you forget and you accidentally positively reinforce a jumping up motion. And then so like obviously each family, each pack, gets to choose their own etiquette rules. Like, so for some the dog's okay on the furniture, for others that's a no. For some it's okay to sit next to you at the dinner table, for others it's like, no, please go to your basket or crate while we have dinner, so there's no begging. Like, you get to pick your own culture, right? Yeah. But the key is to be consistent, because when you give those mixed messages and you're having a snack and feeding your dog by your side, but then at dinner time you're eating and you're not allowing, that's confusing to your dog. So it's about thinking, they are always learning. What are you reinforcing accidentally that then makes it a challenge for them to know what the boundaries are?
Yeah. And also working with your dog's personality type and sort of who they are. And you're going to know that best, right? And when I was listening to that part of his course, I was like laughing out loud, and I was like, I feel so seen right now. Like, we talked about the 3 different dog types, and the leader, I was like, oh my gosh, that is totally Birdie. Like, she checks every single one of those boxes. And to differentiate, between the two of how you're going to work with each kind of personality type, I think that's really great, because, your approach is like, again, we keep using the example of a kid. Your approach with a child who's like really shy and timid and scared versus a kid who's like super confident and is like, I don't need you, mom, right? Like, it's going to be super different approach. And if you try to use the exact same strategies with both, you're going to run into a brick wall probably with both of them, and hinder both progress. So to really tune into and work with, not against your dog's tendencies and personality is really powerful. And I guess there's just so much nuance within all of this that we really need to spend more time diving into. I'm really looking forward to Thursday's workshop.
Yeah, I mean, I've been an animal trainer for a very long time. I mean, according to Antonio's definition, probably all my life, right? Because anytime I'm hanging around with animals, that's going to happen. But it's without, I remember not having had official training and just going on my gut instinct and things like that, and then starting my official training. And it was really eye-opening how much more there was, how much nuance there was, and how simple it is to do the technique correctly. And the crazy thing is, like, I've been in zoos where we actually train worms, like literally earthworms. Right? Obviously, they're not going to be doing particularly complex things and nothing happens fast, but the training methodology to train an earthworm or a goldfish, I'm not joking, a goldfish, or a snake, or a cow, or a lion, or you're a dog, the methodology is exactly the same. You're going to tweak how they appreciate, right? So with earthworms, we use vibration, right? Because their eyes are, let's do a visual cue for the earthworms. Like, come on, really? Right? And so for fish, we're doing auditory sounds under the water because that carries much better. They can't really see up to us very clearly through the change of mediums and stuff. So you adapt according to the species that you're working with. But the methodology, the concept of how you request and confirm, request a particular thing and confirm they got it right, that kind of that transfers all across your species. And it's the same in humans as well, let's be real. There's a famous book by Karen Pryor called Don't Shoot the Dog, which is a bit of a name, but it's like it's the 101 training dog training manual, really. Like, it's really good for your foundation layers. If you've never read it, it's an easy read as well. And it's only a little thin paperback. It's not like some great enormous thing. But it's to the point. The title of Don't Shoot the Dog is don't get to the point of like insane frustration, right? Because you're not unknotting this tangle of what should training be and how do you get there. But in it, she refers frequently. She's like, shh, don't tell anyone. However, use this on your husband, or use this on your boss at work to get your promotion. Like, all these like tactics that are training, it's the same for people. So if you're trying to encourage particular changes in the people around you, the techniques are the same as well. So once again, pet and parent overlaps, right? So Don't Shoot the Dog is a fun one to read.
So just to be clear, this workshop is not how to train your husband, but
Life benefit.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. So join us on Thursday. We shared the link in the YouTube comments. I'll pop onto Facebook right after this and share the link there as well. It's going to be a 2-hour hands-on workshop. First half is going to be a little bit more like teaching, foundations. Again, be sure to watch the summit interview first. And then second half is going to be more hands-on workshop. If you don't watch the summit interview beforehand, it's okay. But it's actually really great. And it's not available all the time. We like unlocked it specifically. We released it from the vault for a couple days leading up to this so that if you didn't get a chance to watch it during the last summit, you can watch it now. So, all right, we will see you guys on Thursday, and we will see you back here tomorrow for